There's a certain level that you should be on with vitamin D.
Yes.
What level is that?
You want it 40 to 70 nanograms per milliliter. This is a blood level test. Like the government says anything above 30 is okay, but 30 is too low. So you want above 40.
Why you say 30 is too low?
Because if you go in the wild and look at animals, nature is the best teacher of anything. Most animals that are vertebrate, they have vitamin D too. Their levels run between 50 and 55. So I think nature's a lot smarter than human beings, number one, and stuff. And so why would all other animals run 50, 55? We don't animal to run at 30. I mean, that's number one. Number two, 30 is only the level to keep you from getting rickets or have bone health. So we only learned the last 10 years that you have vitamin D receptors in your brain, your kidneys, your lung, your heart. So that 30 level was developed even before they knew all this information. So that was just to keep you from getting rickets and bad bones. So therefore, if you got vitamin D receptors and all these other tissues, you're going to need more vitamin D. You know, to fill all these different receptors.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, and then number three, you reach maximum bone density when your vitamin D level gets to be 40 nanograms per milliliter. So at 30, you're not at maximum bone density. So you still got osteoporosis that can happen at 30.
Wow.
And then the next thing is that you don't reach maximum muscle contraction until your vitamin D level gets to be 50 nanograms per milliliter. And so if you put a frog muscle, you know, and check that out, once that muscle gets to be 50, only does it reach maximum muscle contraction. So you add in all those things, the environmental, the clinical, and the physiologic, it tells us that 30 is just too low. And then remember also that your levels drop about 20 to 30% in the wintertime. So if 30 is a number, what they consider the cutoff, if you're at 30, what's going to happen in the wintertime when you drop to 20, 30%? You're going to be suboptimal. So it should be at least 20 to 30% higher than what they consider the baseline.
Wow. I don't feel bad. Usually when I talk to doctors, I start, oh no, I'm not doing well. Talk to a dentist, oh Lord, I'm not doing well. But for some reason, I feel like this is something, not only is there hope for me, but there's hope for all of us.
Oh yes, oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
I'm Dr. Robert Marmer. I'm an ophthalmologist, general ophthalmology here in Atlanta, Georgia. Been here for 40 years in this practice. I trained at Mayo Clinic, and interestingly, when I met Dr. Matthews close to 10 years ago, I found that he had trained at Mayo Clinic and that he's the trauma surgeon over at Grady Medical Center. And he's from Morehouse School of Medicine, and I have a faculty appointment at Morehouse School of Medicine, so we have several things in common. The training in Mayo Clinic, we see people from all over the world with many, many different kinds of illnesses that are rare to many other physicians, but for us at that facility, it's almost commonplace. And what we've seen there is research in medications, in surgery, so we're kind of tuned to do things that are different and perhaps not what the mainstream medical community does. And I think that's part of the reason why both Dr. Matthews and I have had a number of things that we've done that have been somewhat innovative and had people who were skeptical of what's being done, but in the long run, when we know that the things that we're doing are medically sound, they eventually become mainstream medicine. Vitamin D seems to me like no other vitamin. We all think of vitamin A, eat lots of carrots, it's good for your eyes. And vitamin C, eat lots of oranges and you won't get scurvy. But vitamin D seems to be helpful for almost everything. And it's kind of scary to think that, because everybody who says, how can it be good for everything, if you give information about certain things that it does, it seems to be able to do almost everything for any kind of bodily function. makes your bones strong, makes your muscles work better. It's just an incredible vitamin. The vitamin D in sports, well, sports is something that I am very much involved in. And vitamin D in sports, I think, is going to be one of the most widespread used vitamins, or widespread used anything in sports, because of what it can do. I am very much involved in sports. I was the team ophthalmologist for the NBA Atlanta Hawks for 25 years. The IHL Atlanta Knights, the ABL Women's Professional Basketball Team, Atlanta Glory, the ophthalmologist for the 1966 Olympics here in Atlanta, and also the International Maccabi Games that were held here in Atlanta. So I'm very much involved in sports, including participation. And it's very important for athletes to be able to function properly with less injuries and more time to play. Dr. Matthews recognized that vitamin D seemed to help prevent injuries, or if the injuries occurred, for the injuries to last less time, to recover more rapidly, and to decrease concussions.
22:92, the time to beat for the SEC title. It is world leader Kyra Jefferson, the senior from Florida, and Felicia Brown, the senior from Tennessee. Brown is in a good spot in that lane 5. Brown coming off the turn in the lead, and she is going to put this thing away. Is she going to run fast enough? Yes, she does.
His nephew played for MLK Junior High School, Martin Luther King Junior High School, and he convinced the principal at Martin Luther King Junior High School quite a few years ago to have his regimen of vitamin D therapy be done by the entire team. And then the next year, that team had almost no injuries that kept players out of the game, and had only, I think, one concussion, and they won the championship. So everybody, said, well, gee, that's great. Vitamin D did such a wonderful thing for the team. And most of the skeptics will say, well, they've got very good athletes. They know how to tackle properly. They know how to fall properly. So they're going to have less injuries, less concussions. And with all those great athletes, they can win a championship. That doesn't prove that vitamin D made any difference whatsoever. Well, the fact that vitamin D therapy has been embraced by a number of professional teams. As a team ophthalmologist for the Atlanta Hawks, I introduced Dr. Matthews to the trainer and to the medical staff who I work with. And he presented the facts of vitamin D, and the Atlanta Hawks did a modified version of his regimen. I think the next year they had the lowest player games missed for the entire season, and the season last season they won a franchise record 60 games out of 82, and went deep into the playoffs. Well, vitamin D with the brain. Vitamin D decreases inflammation, and it decreases swelling, which is what happens in a concussion. You have swelling and inflammation, and with other medications and other regimens, vitamin D will help decrease the chance of having a concussion and decrease the chance of the concussion lasting a long time and recovering more rapidly. The vitamin D therapy is combined with many other things that Dr. Matthews does over at Grady Memorial Hospital. That's a great level 1 trauma center, along with, I'm on the staff of Atlanta Medical Center, which is also level 1 trauma center. Very unusual for a city to have more than one level 1 trauma center. But he has found statistically now that vitamin D therapy, along with many other things that he uses, but primarily the vitamin D, that the mortality rate has been cut almost in half. And these very serious injuries, people who come in with injuries which they don't even expect the patient to survive, and in many cases they can walk out and have a functional life. With those statistics, the acceptance of vitamin D therapy now is increasing. I believe it's the Chicago Blackhawks of the NHL and the New York Giants of the NFL have adopted the vitamin D therapy, and they both have won championships since that. And whether or not that was the reason or not, it's probably the good athletes and the ability to do tackling and following properly, but nevertheless, they won the championships. The way that vitamin D works, it works kind of like a hormone, and it's really, even though it's a vitamin, it has the chemical makeup of acting in the body like a hormone. It makes bones stronger, muscles better, it decreases inflammation. It's been shown to decrease the recovery time for patients who have had myocardial infarctions. There's so many. It's almost like the snake oil of the West back in the 1800s. It seems to be like a quote cure for everything. It's not a cure, but the treatment makes the recovery time for many injuries, to be keeping them able to do everything that they need to do without so much time to recover. That I know the growth hormone that everybody in the professional sports seems to take is banned, and yet this vitamin D therapy, acting as a hormone, has no substances in it which are contrary to any sports system, any regulations. So this is the hormone, I think, or a vitamin I think most people should take, and take in a little bit extra dosage. Well, the FDA has met with Dr. Matthews, and based on his results and some of the real hard data, not the fact that there's sporting teams that use them, but the data that he's accumulated at the Grady Memorial Hospital trauma patients, the FDA has, I believe, it's my understanding that they've actually increased the recommendations of vitamin D in many products and vitamin therapy supplements that are available now on the market. Not only that, but because of its effect on the brain, decreased swelling, decreased inflammatory reaction, but also, and I don't know how to explain this, but it also seems to help in not necessarily just physical trauma, but mental trauma, perhaps. And the military has been very interested in this. In fact, my understanding is that several of the generals from Washington has come down to Atlanta and met with Dr. Matthews because they're concerned about the post-traumatic stress syndrome of military in, for example, places like Afghanistan. It's something which I believe they may start to implement in those that are returning that have these not just physical but emotional problems. The fact that Dr. Matthews has demonstrated these many things about vitamin D, he has been requested to lecture at very, many locations. I know he was in Dubai not recently. He's been asked to meet with the FDA again. He has lectured at Mayo Clinic. Many societies have asked him to come to share his information about vitamin D, because this, I think, is going to be an innovative treatment that's going to be implemented in hospital emergency rooms and just the general population. I think that Dr. Matthews he's also written many papers, publications that are very well received. These are peer review journals where they've been studied, that his data is really revolutionary. And I believe that because of Dr. Matthews, there's going to be a lot more healthy individuals that are not necessarily involved with sports, but just the general population will start increasing the amount of vitamin D that they're taking, and it will be a healthier country.